Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today I'll be reviewing the Nolzur's Marvelous Miniatures Wave 21. I will not be reviewing the other 20, so if you want to see a review of those, find someone else. Okay, I digress. These are wonderful miniatures with great and unique sculpts. They're all so cool, and I'm sure you could find many uses for them in your games. They are the perfect gift for the DM who uses generic goblin encounters a bit too much. You know who you are. For each miniature, I'll show you what they look like painted as well, so you have that to look forward to. So, without further ado, let's get started with the review. First up, we have Grimlocks. Grimlocks are primitive, barbaric, underdark creatures that are extremely xenophobic and prefer to keep to themselves. Like me. They have a history of being enslaved by both Drow and Mindflayer, giving them a twisted depiction on what civilized society is actually like. Because of this, they often stick in small tribes, which raid nearby surface towns and settlements just to survive. They have adapted to the Underdark and have evolved to thrive without the need of functioning eyeballs. To counteract this, they have keen hearing and smell. They also have a stone camouflage ability, which gives them advantage on stealth checks made to hide in rocky terrain. Horrifying. Grimlocks have a challenge rating of 1/4, making them wonderful encounters for a beginner party. Though, don't underestimate them, they can still pack quite a punch with their spiky bone clubs, which, by the way, show up wonderfully in these miniatures. And here they are, all painted up. They were super easy to paint, and both of them combined took me about 10 minutes tops. Warpaint speed paints really came to the rescue in pulling out those tiny details in the club and skin and hair of the miniature. I can definitely see someone buying a bunch of these packs and making an ambush encounter for a party's perilous trek through tight caverns. Though they look like old Florida grandpas, they really have this creepy appearance, reaching out and shouting at the unknown. These minis were overall very fun to paint, and I definitely encourage you to find a place to use them in your campaign. And here they are side by side. They stand about roughly the size of your average PC adventurer, so there shouldn't be any size gaps or inconsistencies when it comes to these miniatures, which is pretty cool. Up next, we have mummies, but not just any mummies, cool mummies. What's better than an undead tomb guardian? Why, an undead tomb guardian with the heads of an alligator and a crane, silly. Mummies often are found guarding tombs of mummy lords, clerics who wanted immortality. They have a dreadful glare which can frighten people. Also, don't let them touch you, or you can be infected with a rotting curse called mummy rot, which, if it brings you to 0 hit points, turns your body to dust. It can, however, be cured with a remove curse spell, so hope you have a cleric in your party. Mummies have a beefy challenge rating of 3, and a warning to any DM who wants to use them: watch your step, or your party is as good as dust. Get it? Dust, like, never mind. If you're gonna fight one, just be sure to have some lamp oil and a fire cantrip or 2 at the ready. Like me, they are cripplingly vulnerable to fire. Once again, speed paints come in clutch to really make all these details absolutely pop. Black wash also works too if you don't have speed paints, but I absolutely love how unique these miniatures are, especially compared to all the other mummies we've had in the past. They're just people. I love the directions WizKids is taking with these minis, and I hope they keep it up. And I absolutely love the dynamic poses on these miniatures too. Like, the alligator just looks like it wants to rip you to shreds, while the bird almost has this intimidating, commanding presence to it. I can totally see someone getting away with using it as a mummy lord miniature. I mean, how anticlimactic would it be for your party to reach the main sarcophagus of this tomb they've been barely scraping through just to see a funny bird looking back at them? And here are the mummies side by side. They stand as tall as our average human adventurer. Now up next we have the Dark Spellcaster and her Flameskulls. Fun fact, there are actually no dark spellcaster stat blocks, so I would recommend using the sorcerer stat block. It has a challenge rating of 3 and a lot of different spells. There is a lot of room for interpretation with this miniature, and she could even make a great player character miniature as well. There's just so much you can do with this one. It's all up to your imagination, like the game implies. Now, Flameskulls, on the other hand, do have a stat block. Flameskulls are dead wizards who have become undead through ancient rituals, usually to serve a better wizard. When they fly, they trail behind a green flame which burns as bright as a torch. But don't underestimate them, though. They have a small number of wizard spells, their strongest being, Fireball. Yeah, Fireball. Can you believe that? Okay, if that's not bad enough, they have a rejuvenation ability where if the Flameskull is destroyed, it regains all of its hit points in 1 hour unless holy water is sprinkled on its remains or a dispel magic or remove curse spell is cast on them. That is absolutely horrifying if they catch you at a bad time. Flameskulls have a CR of 4, and they even have a fire ray attack, and to add insult to injury, they have a magic resistance as well, so good luck dealing with that. Alright, unrealistic hatred toward Flameskulls aside, they're pretty cool creatures, I guess. This was actually a really fun box to make. It's one of the only ones, no, not one of, it's the only box in this whole set of 10 that actually comes with 3 miniatures, as you saw in the video. The Spellcaster, I decided to paint her more with neutral colors instead of more of the evil look that the box was begging me to paint. So maybe someone could pick it up as a player character in the future, give it a bit more use. I absolutely love the spell effect on this miniature, and I used the same speed paint, like the turquoise speed paint that you'll see in the Flameskulls I painted as well, just to give it a bit of unity between the 3 miniatures, and I think it turned out great. As mentioned, the Flameskulls were impossibly easy to make. I mean, both of them combined probably took me 5 minutes at the most, not including drying time, obviously. But all I had to do was just give a little bit of black wash on the skull to really bring out the indents in it, and 2 little red dots for eyes, and then use that, I think it's plasmatic bolt from the speed paints, to just one coat over the whole flame really brought out that green but eeriness to it and that magic-y sort of vibe it gives off. So I'm glad that turned out as well as it did. And here they are all side by side. The Dark Spellcaster stands about as tall as your average human adventurer. Up next we have a pair of human fighters. Humans are cunning creatures that aren't bound to racial traits like the other player races. No, they change and grow throughout generations, unlike the stubborn elves and dwarves who live alongside them. Humans can do anything they put their mind to, and can adapt to problems on a whim. You can play as a human variant where you can choose the lucky feat. I mean, any feat. It's usually the lucky feat. Both of these were very fun to paint, and I'm not a huge fan of painting humans. I find the little details to be pretty annoying, but with a bit of patience, I think I was able to prevail. Now, what's cool about this pack in particular is that usually WizKids will have 2 of the same mini in a pack, but with different poses. While with this one, it's 2 completely different characters. These can work great as PC minis and even NPCs. I feel like you can also get away with using them as different classes, not just fighters. I can see the male being used as a paladin of sorts, and the female as a barbarian. So many possibilities with these ones. And here they are side by side. They stand exactly as tall as your average human adventurer. Last up for our medium miniatures, we have the Shrieker and Violet Fungus. A Shrieker is exactly as it looks, a mushroom that shrieks. When bright light or a creature is within 30 feet of the Shrieker, it emits a shriek audible within 300 feet of it. The Shrieker continues to shriek until the disturbance moves out of range. If you're paranoid of intruders and want to be more secure in your evil castle, then I highly recommend installing some of these babies. Violet fungus are a little more dangerous. Like the Shrieker, they are human-sized mushrooms that, when motionless, are indistinguishable from an ordinary mushroom. I say motionless because the violet fungus are actually able to slowly scoot across the battlefield with a whopping 5 feet per turn. It makes up for this, however, by being able to reach out 10 feet with its long tendrils for an attack. Don't get touched by them, or you could fall victim to its rotting touch attack, which deals necrotic damage. Though they have a challenge rating of 1/4, be careful, because they usually come in small hordes. As for our friend the Shrieker, they have a challenge rating of 0, so unless your character has super sensitive ears, just be more concerned as to what the shriek might be attracting. And here they are all painted. For the Shrieker, I used a black wash over the whole cap of the mushroom. For the stipe, I used a maroon color and then layered it over with, you guessed it, more black wash, because I practically drink the stuff. Because I felt that the mini was lacking in color, I also added the maroon that I used on the stipe to carefully fill in the holes in the cap, bringing it to life a little bit more. Overall, I think it turned out fine. I did relatively the same thing with the violet fungus as well. I caked it in a purple, then covered it with, you guessed it, black wash. Did it make the miniature look a bit too dark? Maybe. But in the grand scheme of things, I think it passes. Overall, both of them combined took me about 15 minutes to paint, so I call that a win. And here they are beside your average human adventurer. They are tall mushrooms. And now we're on to our large miniatures, and since we just covered the Shrieker and violet fungus, we might as well cover the third and coolest of the monster manual mushrooms. This is a gas spore. At first glance, it resembles an immature beholder with that central eyeball and those funny little mushroom stalks, but don't let your guard down. They are, to a very literal sense, a balloon. They have a whopping 1 hit point, and when these balloons pop, you are prone to catching its illness. COVID! Jokes aside, spores invade the infected creature's system, killing the creature in a number of hours, unless the disease is removed. As always, I hope you have a cleric on your team. In half that time, though, the creature becomes poisoned for the rest of the duration. After the creature inevitably dies, it sprouts numbers of tiny gas spores which grow to full size in only 7 days. Ugh. They usually sprout from the corpses of dead beholders and make a great warning for your players that something strong must be lying ahead. And here they are all painted. Of course I had to make the first one the default green color seen in the monster manual because I think it's a great color scheme. The green and red really complement each other on this design. Of course, speed paints really came in handy with all the ridges and bumps of these miniatures. I'm sure a wash would also work just as well. Speaking of washes, for this one in particular, I buttered it up with some black wash to really make sure it looked as grimy as possible, because it's a fungus after all. And here's the gas spore of my own color creation. Maybe this can be used as an Underdark encounter. It certainly would fit the vibe of the Underdark for sure. I feel like since in the grand scheme of it all, gas spores are plants, and thus can adapt and change depending on the atmosphere alone. So why wouldn't some grow a different color? Regarding there are only 2 colors needed for your average gas spore, I encourage you, yes, you, the viewer, to try some different color combinations for these funny little balloons. Send me a picture of them if possible. I would love to see them. And here are the gas spores beside your average human adventurer. Next up, we have a Merrow. In times long past, merfolk who swam too close to the abyss where the Demogorgon's influence radiated were transformed into Merrows. They have since bred and have become a, though unstable, part of the ecosystem of the ocean. They often move in small groups, ready to pounce on unsuspecting merchants sailing the sea. They are amphibious, meaning they can also fight land battles. However, they are smart enough to know that they are out of their depth when it comes to land combat. They counteract this by equipping themselves with a harpoon to pull their opponents into the water, similarly to how I abusively force my friends to swim with me at the beach. They only have a challenge rating of 2, but if you're able to get your low-level party into the water with the Merrow, you'll find that they will have a shockingly bad time. And here it is all painted up. I absolutely love how it turned out. The glossy paint really separates the Merrow from the water piece. Oh, did I forget to mention that the Merrow and the Wave are 2 separate pieces? They are easy to attach though, with just 2 little notches. It fits on the Wave very snug, and I didn't feel the need to glue it. As for the paint job, I used a glossy blue I found, and then carefully added black wash over top to make sure the scales really pop, but not too much as to take away from the glossiness of the blue. The Wave was simply just a lot of dry brushing with a variety of blues, since it's a clear piece. I'm also such a fan of the dynamic pose on this miniature as well. It looks so threatening, and I'm excited to use it in one of my future campaigns. And here's the Merrow standing beside your average human adventurer. Up next we have a Barlgura, also known as a leaping demon. These apish creatures live in the abyssal society as lower life forms to higher ranking demons. They usually act as scouts and muscle to their armies, and are looked at as stupid and reckless by other high-ranking demons. Though reckless they may be, they are far from stupid. Wait, no, just looked in their stats. They are stupid. They're kinda wise though. Funny little wise monkey. They have a challenge rating of 5, and have innate spellcasting as well, giving them such spells as Phantasmal Force and Disguise Self. They have a reckless ability alongside with a running leap. If spells fail, they often resort to punching and biting their way through situations, like my ex. And here it is all painted up. Speed paints really made the colors pop, especially on the back. The blue on the chest was a bit too dark, so I had to rub off most of it to really brighten it up. Overall, very fun to paint, 10 out of 10 when it comes to that. The miniature itself is fine. I feel like the pose is kind of odd regarding Barlguras are normally on all fours like normal gorillas. It's a cool pose, don't get me wrong, but what most of these miniatures have in common is that they look cool in all angles, no matter which direction they face. And for this one, it only seems like it looks good when facing the front of it. The other angles, in my opinion, just look kinda goofy. If you're preparing a Barlgura ambush encounter with a couple of these for a party, I'd recommend pairing it up with some Barlguras found on Etsy. They have pretty good models there as well. And here's the Barlgura standing beside your average human adventurer. Next up we have the Glabrezu. This chicken-legged evil lobster is actually a powerful demon, though they prefer to work in the shadows, tempting their victims with promises of riches and power before ruining their lives, like modern-day Hollywood. They avidly collect vast amounts of magical items, gold, and other bargaining chips to aid them in tempting the weak-willed. They have a beefy challenge rating of 9 and innate spellcasting, giving them access to spells like Dispel Magic, Fly, and Power Word Stun. And if that wasn't bad enough, they have magic resistance. They have large pincers, as seen on the miniature itself, that are able to grapple their opponents. If all else fails though, they have a fist attack, which deals a mighty 2d4 bludgeoning damage. And here's our lobster all buttered up. The key for making a good lobster is to steam it rather than simply boiling it. That's how you get that nice red color. but you gotta baste it first. I basted mine in a lighter red color, then marinated it in a black wash to really darken the overall hue of the lobster to more of a maroon color. I marinated the feet with a bright yellow, then added some more black wash to really bring out the juicy details. Though it only requires a couple colors, I found it very fun to paint. I used a black oil on the horns and pincers to really make them pop. I think the overall miniature is a great design. It fits on the plastic base very snugly, and it has an intimidating presence. The Glabrezu can be a good mini-boss for a higher level party, while also having the ability to deepen the plot of a story just by a quick appearance. It could be the whispers in a corrupt noble's head, or even the driving force to kickstart a plot against your party. I mean, heck, they could even try to tempt one of your party members who might be a little too power hungry. Plot-wise, there's so much you can do with a Glabrezu, and I would like to hear what you would use it for if you were using it in a campaign. And here's the Glabrezu standing beside your average human adventurer. And here we are on our final miniature, and in my opinion, the coolest. This one's the capstone miniature of Wave 21. I introduce to you the Lizardfolk render. Now, I'm not supposed to have favorites. I love all of these miniatures equally, but if I had to choose a favorite, this one absolutely takes the cake. Lizardfolk renders actually appear in Ghost of Saltmarsh, and their stat block can be found there. Not in the monster manual. Lizardfolk are primitive reptilian humanoids that live in the swamps and jungles of the world. They are territorial xenophobes that would rather you stay away. They are true neutral creatures and will only act on their instincts rather than reason. Their mood swings are more unpredictable than a Florida hurricane, and while one minute one could be traveling with you, the next you become its lunch, simply because the Lizardfolk got hungry and wanted something fresher than rations. Lizardfolk did become a player race in Volo's Guide to Monsters, but good luck trying to convince your DM to let you use this miniature. It is absolutely huge. I know you can't tell from the video right now, but I'll show you in a minute. It absolutely dwarfs any ordinary PC miniature. The Lizardfolk render has a challenge rating of 3, and if they weren't already beefy enough, they have an attack called Rend the Field. The render can make a claw attack against each creature of its choice within 10 feet of it. A creature hit by this attack must succeed on a strength saving throw or be knocked prone. If that wasn't bad enough, they also have a Blood Frenzy, where the render has advantage on melee attack rolls against any creature that doesn't have all of its hit points. And here's this puppy all painted up. Of all the minis I've painted in this video, this one I am most proud of. I used all the tricks I have: speed paints, dry brush, even some black wash. Now, usually, like on the back of the box, they expect you to paint it green with an orange fin, like a normal Lizardfolk. But I decided to base it off of the colors of an obscure reference art I saw on Lizardfolks when I was first learning about Dungeons & Dragons. The reference art had dark blue scales and a purple fin, and I don't know why, but that just stuck in my head rent-free for years, and then when they came out with this miniature, I was like, this is why, so that I can paint it just like that. And I'm glad I did. If the size alone wouldn't catch your player's attention, the color will. It absolutely looks like it could be a Lizardfolk boss, one after a small swampy dungeon. That or some big challenge in a battle arena. That would be absolutely killer. Of all the minis in this wave, I love this one the most. 10 out of 10, would buy and paint again. And here's the Lizardfolk render beside your average human adventurer. As I mentioned earlier, it completely dwarfs regular PC miniatures. And we're almost at the end of the video. If you like the miniatures you saw in the video, they can be yours. Yes, yours! I will be selling the miniatures you just saw now in the description of this video. Catch them while they're available though, because I only plan to sell them once. When they're gone, they're gone. Unless you guys end up really wanting them, then I might paint up more to sell. I guess we'll see. These happy lads in this video, they can be you. Just look how much fun they're having with the miniatures that were painted. This can be you. If you buy the miniatures, do it. Buy them. And here we are at the end of the video. Overall, the Nolzur's Marvelous Miniatures Wave 21 was full of winners. A lot of these can be added to most campaigns very easily. Their use on the table is very versatile. They all have great designs and were a blast to paint. My next video will probably be a full set review of the Icons of the Realm's Glory of Giants miniatures, so you can look forward to that video pretty soon. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. And if you want to stay notified of my next uploads, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon while you're at it. But until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Club Kobold.